Hello and welcome to the story as to how I was scammed when buying a used car. Now here's the thing, I've bought and sold hundreds of cars over the years and I've always been quietly proud that I've never fallen victim to a scam, but this one got me good. So in this video we're going to get into some more of the details, I'm going to answer some of the questions that came up, and I can even give you some tips as to how to avoid this scam for yourself. Buckle up for this one. So if you're totally new to this and you haven't seen my previous video, let me summarise things for you. So I was looking to buy a Ford Focus ST for this channel here. I make a few videos with them and then I sell them on and hopefully don't lose too much money. So I found one online for sale. All looked pretty legitimate. I went off, I met the seller, I seen the car, it all checked out, including the HPI report, which reported no finance. So I bought the car. Standard stuff. One weird thing was the new V5 document never did come through. I was given the new keeper slip so I could quote the information from it to DVLA when I eventually inquired, about 6 or 7 weeks after buying the car, and they told me that slip did not belong to the most current V5 on that car. Weird one. But honestly, I didn't think that much about it. I think these types of mix-ups must happen all the time. Maybe he's forgotten to send my paperwork off. He had vanished off the face of the planet at this point, by the way, rather conveniently. So I filled out the appropriate forms with DVLA and got myself a new V5. I put the issue to bed in my head after that. Fast forward another couple of months, I've made the videos that I want to make with the car and a friend offers me the same amount of money that I paid for it. Happy days, exactly what I wanted to happen. So I sell the car to them, and given that we're friends and we trust each other, they didn't see the need to do an HPI report, and honestly I would have probably done the same. I would have probably just bought it on their word, given that I'd HPI checked it when I bought it and I could vouch for the condition of the car. They then keep the car for about 6 months, they have some fun with it, and then they look to trade it in against a new car into one of these big car supermarket places, at which point they knock it back because the car has got outstanding finance on it. Now cue a very confused situation and phone call from my friend to say, Grant, did you take out finance on that old Ford before you sold it to me? Of course I hadn't, but obviously something had gone wrong along the way. Now to cut a long story short, what had happened here was the guy who'd sold it to me had basically given me an old V5 keeper slip. We know that because DVLA confirmed it. He'd retained the current one and used that to refinance the car after I had taken it away. So he got my money and he got the finance company's money. Now that previous video racked up something like 300,000 views in a month, and within it was a whole host of comments which I'd like to get into because there's some really good lessons that we can all learn from it. So first one, RX1, wherever possible, always do the V5 transfer online at immediate time of purchase. That way you know 100% you're dealing with the latest V5, as the DVLA system won't let you do an online transfer if it's a superseded V5. Yes, 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 and yes again. That is some great advice, and honestly, it's what I'm going to do from now on. Some of the old school sellers still like to get your information, send it off to the V5, but that leaves room for scams like this to take place. Certainly from my point of view, I'm only going to be interested in buying a used car from a private seller if we do the online transfer there and then before I've left. Brilliant advice there. And in this particular situation, hindsight's always 20/20, isn't it? But I would have scuppered that dodgy seller's scam. Now this next one's really bad, similar situation to me. So I had this happen to me, I bought a Range Rover, then passed it on to my mum. After a few months we were contacted by the finance company and I was advised I'd either have to give the car back or pay off the outstanding amount. Awful, awful. I paid an extra $9,000 for the car and I'm still trying to get the money back from the seller after taking them to court for 2 years. Experian didn't show the finance on the HPI check I performed and refused to honour their data guarantee. Horrible situation, but honestly I can kind of see where Experian are coming from here, because if it's a scenario like mine, technically the car didn't have finance on it when I went and bought it. It was after I bought it the seller put the finance on, so technically the HPI check wasn't wrong. Sounds like that might be the case here. It's been a huge nightmare and I'm not sure I'll ever get my money back. Sympathy to you, buddy. That is a horrible situation, and it brings to light another part of this story. Now, because we were in Scotland, the law differs a little bit from what it does south of the border. Now, I'm no lawyer or solicitor, I can't explain this in proper terms, but essentially what we found was in Scotland, as long as you buy a car with a good title, now what that means is you buy a car and there's no mention of any outstanding finance and you are not made aware of it in any way whatsoever, then you buy that in good intentions, you get the car with a good title as it's known. Now that should excuse you from any debt that's on that asset. However, I know it does work differently south of the border, and these debt recovery companies or finance companies can actually come and retrieve the car, and it sounds like that's maybe what's happened in this poor sod's instance. Awful. Really bad. There is so many unscrupulous sellers out there nowadays. You have to be so careful. Now this next point, it's a tricky one. It's a point that probably one person is going to disagree from another on. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below on this. So you should name and shame the bloke who took out the loan secured on a car that he never owned. Shame him or others will get stung. As I say, this is a real tricky one because the guy isn't a trader, he's not operating a garage, he's just a private individual. And to add to that, he's also got a fairly generic name. So if I went blasting this guy's name out and tied to Ford Focus, there's potential there that it could get confused for another individual, and that is the last thing in the world that I want. Now the other reason I didn't go this route is when this scam actually came to light, I'd parted company with the car. I had no ties with the car anymore. Sure, I'd sold it to a friend, but this legal difficulty, if we want to call it that now, was now between my friend and the finance company. Obviously, it's not a great feeling for me. I've sold this car on to a friend, albeit unknowingly, with this finance in place, and that is why I did say to that friend, if you want to go and report this to the authorities, I will back it the full way, but I didn't really feel it was my place anymore. It was them who were dealing with it. It was their car, and it was between them and the finance company. Now, one more comment that I want to bring up just to highlight how an unscrupulous seller could be tempted into this and just how easy it can be. This is why we need to be so careful. Let's get into it. So, good man for bringing the subject up and making everyone aware. Thank you very much. I personally have been sent 2 identical V5s for a car I bought last year. Disaster. On phoning DVLA, they asked me to destroy anyone I chose as it was a clerical error. Now the issue with that is having 2 V5s, well, you could dupe a seller into the exact situation that I found myself in, because you sell that car, you give that new owner one of the V5s, and then you use the second identical V5 to apply finance to that car. That would create the exact situation that I find myself in. And this is why we need to be so careful when buying cars. Here's a little tip and a site that I genuinely use whenever I'm looking to buy a car now. It's vehiclescore.co.uk, completely free service. Go to this website, put the registration plate of the car that you're interested in into their system, and it will give you the good and the bad points about that particular car. Now, I cannot stress this enough. They've got paid HPI reports on there. Do one of those as well. I'll put up a 15% discount code on the screen now to give you absolutely no excuse. And cover your back on this one. There's so many bad sellers out there, and of course, if they're going to opt to take finance after they've sold us the car, there's not really any way we can get around that, but we can at least be extra careful and do a good quality HPI check before buying. Now, as always, I love to hear your thoughts in the comments below, so please do not hesitate. Let me know what you think here, or if you've got more questions, post them. If you've got tips, post them as well. Let's try and make some good come out of my bad situation here. And as ever, thank you so much for watching. Please do consider hitting that subscribe button, hitting the like button if you've enjoyed this video. I'll see you next time.